So, it's Friday afternoon and still people are here. So, congratulations to you. And at this point, also a thanks to Nicola for organizing this and for giving me a new life goal. At one day, I also want to have my picture on the side of an arena in 10 meters tall. Great feat, cool, great to pull off. So, I'm Helmut. I'm from Austria. I'm here because Austria is actually also part of the Balkans, as you may know. And I'm doing e-commerce stuff since almost 20 years in various roles. But if my kid asks me what's my job, I say I work with my clients and I ensure that their revenue and their margin grows. That's more or less my job. And I'm here with my colleague Dorant from
Yes. Hey everyone.
BigCommerce.
Yeah, I'm Dorant. I'm from Kosovo originally, but I'm based in the UK now, and I work for an e-commerce company called BigCommerce.
Okay, so what are we talking today? You already heard a lot of cool sessions the last two days, and maybe one thing to point out is e-commerce is still growing, so it's nowhere near its prime. And already today, around 20% of all purchases made are online. In some countries in Europe, it's actually up to 30%, especially in the Nordics with a high adoption rate. And in some industries like electronics, yeah, it can be even almost half of the revenue you make is done online. So the thing is, if you're missing out online, also selling online, then you are missing out market shares you can address. And to zoom in a little bit on the Europe region, what we know about it's hard to get data from all Europe, so it's easy to get data from the EU. So most numbers I have are from EU countries only, but we can make some assumptions. So we can say that almost every citizen in the European Union is online, and almost as a huge majority bought at least once online already. And as we all know, many people buy regularly. And what we also know from data, and here also a thanks to the Croatian E-commerce Association for providing us the numbers. They are all also here at the venue. I'm not sure if somebody is here. Thanks for that. As we also know, is that the Balkan countries are definitely below the European average at the moment by adopting online sales. And this means there's a huge potential to grasp, especially in Bulgaria and Romania, where there is no real reason why it shouldn't grow. Now, complete integrated in the European, also in the EU market, there's a lot of opportunity here. And what we can see from data from Croatia, for example, the adoption rate is still below the European average, but the growth rate is much higher than in the rest of Europe, meaning they will catch up very fast, and this trend can be extrapolated to other countries as well. And another interesting figure is that the graph showing here is, okay, the average money a user spends per year online. In Germany, it's roughly 1K. In Croatia, it's roughly 500 euros. This is average. I personally, everything I wear today, with the exception of my wedding ring, I bought online. There's nothing on me that wasn't bought online. So I guess my numbers are, I don't know, 10 times that probably. So I even buy commodity stuff online. So it's all a matter of adoption. If you tap in, there is a lot of to get. And what we can see of these numbers is that the average spending consumers do online is usually dependent on two factors. The first one is obviously the median income of the country. The more money you have, the more you can spend. But the other important factor is the better the online e-commerce infrastructure that is available to you, the easier it is for you to buy. Meaning if there are more shops, more good shops where you can shop online, the more you will buy. So there are both sides of this. And the obvious conclusion out of this is, okay, if you want to earn more money, then you should also try to enter markets with a higher average online spending. And when you want to scale your e-commerce operations internationally, there are some challenges. So in my years, I saw many successes and many pitfalls. And funny enough, the last 2 days there were a lot of sessions who talked very specific of parts of this and how to solve them. So you know, for each challenge there are suitable solutions out there. There's suitable partners that help you. For example, we talked yesterday. There was a good session about localization. It isn't good enough just to translate stuff. So, for example, if I shop on an online shop which is in a foreign language originally, I rather prefer an English version than a bad German translation, because a bad German translation would not inspire trust. If it's just English, I would buy, maybe other Austrians not, which are not as proficient in German. So that's always a trade-off, what to invest, what to do. There are things to consider in the payment options. What we learned, it's very important that you have those payment options available that are relevant in the region. It's especially if you deal with, let's say, American solutions, maybe they just provide credit card. This is not good enough in most European countries. You need specialized payment options. You need, I don't know, instant payments in Western Balkans, for example, as an option, stuff like that. Especially then coming to the logistics, it's not so much about if you pay for the shipping or not, because in the end it's the whole package that makes the decision. But it's important if you can expect the package to arrive in 3 days or in 3 weeks. So that's a huge one. I once ordered something in Spain and it took 2 weeks because the Spanish postal service was not so good at that time. Recently I ordered something from, I think it was Poland, and it was almost 24-hour delivery from Poland to my home, so it can be done. Obviously, in non-European countries, you also have the additional issues of taxes, border controls. We just heard right before this in the session, so you need partners for that. There are other topics. I won't go into much detail to not bore you, but you see the picture. Okay, there are challenges to make, and it seems overly complex. But the key thing is, it shouldn't be complex, because if done right, the commerce solution and the commerce technology you're using should help your business. It should not hinder you. It should not be an additional burden on your daily work. It should actually make your life easier. That's what it's all about. And to come to that point, what we can see is the e-commerce revenue you can make is absolutely tied to a very smart investment in your e-commerce infrastructure. And with smart, I mean it has to be sized in the right way, and it has to make your life easier. It has not, if it's a struggle, if it's a huge investment, it's not good enough. And as soon as you provide more sophisticated online shopping options, you will see the numbers will go up. I've seen this everywhere. Sooner or later, the numbers will go up if it's good enough. And what you also see that I think I have not a single client in my life who not at one point also went into other countries to increase the market share. That's very easy to do, and also relatively easy to do with all the things. If it's, for example, a neighboring country with a similar language, for example, many Austrian companies go into Germany because of this reason, because it's very simple. Even then, you need some localization. That's also important. You cannot do everything directly. But what you can see is that you can increase your revenue and also your margin if you're going to a rich country very dramatically without too much a risk, because going there and opening physical stores is much more demanding than starting online business there, for example. You can even use it as a kind of advanced force to make your brand known in a new country before you enter physically as well. And last but not least, the right infrastructure has to grow with your demands. It doesn't help you if you have to do a high-risk, huge investment at the start and hope for the best afterwards. It has to grow with your demands. You have to be able to start small and scale up when your business will scale up. And if you do it right, your business will scale up. So yeah, and that's the cue for my colleague Dorant, because he will show you exactly how BigCommerce is doing that.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. So we spoke about the huge potential that there is about scaling internationally and what the challenges are, right? So now we're going to speak about 5 important things that each e-commerce brand should do right when they want to start locally and scale internationally. So the 5 things are, first, you need to create an engaging experience, and you need to have an e-commerce platform that allows you to do so. The second thing is, you need, even if you have the best, most beautiful site, you have to figure out how to attract customers to your site, right? And when you attract customers to your site, the next important thing is to be able to convert those customers into purchasing customers through every stage of the user journey, but especially in the checkout. And now, most importantly, expand. How are you going to be able to go through this engage, attract, and convert funnel in another region? If you want to sell internationally, if you want to sell in Europe, if you want to sell in the US, etc. And last but not least is operate. How are you going to be able to do this at a low cost and at a low amount of time? I'm going to talk about the engaged first, right? How are you going to create an engaging experience? Well, first you need to choose the right platforms. There are a lot of platforms in the industry right now, and I'm going to explain a bit about the differences when you choose one. After you choose the platform, you also have the possibility to choose the front-end technology that you want to use to build an engaging experience. When it comes to the e-commerce technology spectrum, we've always been presented with a choice when it comes to technology, right? And not just e-commerce platforms, but accounting packages, ERPs, and whatnot. Which is, do we go down the open source route or do we go down the cloud-based route? Now, as we know, the open source, you can basically build anything that you can think of because it's like a blank sheet of paper. You can build anything that you can think of, but with the amount of flexibility comes a lot of responsibility as well. You as a vendor or your agency that is maintaining the site for you has to take care of the hosting, has to take care of the security, has to take care of the bug fixes, the patches, the updates, and the upgrades. And a lot of business that I speak to say that they spend a lot of time and money on maintaining the site as opposed to being able to sell more or scaling in a different region or spending money on marketing to grow the business. Now, cloud-based solves for most of those issues, right? Hosting is taken care of, PCI compliance is taken care of, updates and upgrades are taken care of, plus it has a lot of out-of-the-box functionality and pre-built functionality which you can utilize, which will save you costs and also have a faster time to market. But SaaS has been seen as a bit restrictive when it comes to how much can you customize it. Can you integrate to the technologies that sit outside of your e-commerce platform? A lot of businesses use an ERP or a PIM or an accounting package that you need to integrate your platform with. So it has been seen as a bit restrictive. So the third one is open SaaS, right? Which gives you the best of both worlds. You get the benefits of SaaS, so hosting is taken care of, PCI compliance, updates and upgrades are taken care of, but it also gives you the openness to customize in the front end because it's completely decoupled from the back end. You can also integrate to anything you can think of via APIs, and also you can scale globally without paying a lot of money to do so. And I'll explain exactly how we do that on an open SaaS platform. Now, when we speak about the front-end technology, you have two options when it comes to BigCommerce, right? You can use our own front-end, which we call the Stencil framework, and it's basically you can pick a theme. It's fully customizable. It's HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Anyone that calls themselves a developer can develop on it. But you also have a page builder, right? And what this does, it's a visual editor for your marketing team to be able to customize. Because a lot of businesses, when they use an open source platform, they need to make some small tweaks on the front end or an email automation tool. They have to go to their developing team or they have to go to an agency, which takes time and money to do it. A visual editor allows your marketing team to be able to drag and drop content, pictures, change the layout, change the colors without having to spend too much time on it. And then the next one is doing it in a headless way. Because open SaaS platforms have the backend decoupled from the front end, you can pick a different front end technology. For example, WordPress is pretty famous, and you can use other technologies and other CMS tools like Contentful, etc. Now, after you build an engaging experience, you have to think about how you're going to attract customers, right? First of all, you have to have a platform that integrates with the channels where your customers are, and you have to do your own due diligence to figure out which channels you want to market to and which channels you want to sell into. It could be Google, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc. The other thing that is important is for your platform to be able to integrate with the marketplaces that you sell to, like Amazon and eBay. And the important thing about selling in marketplaces is that it's good to test a region with a marketplace. Let's just say you're thinking about selling in the UK, right? In order to sell in the UK, because the e-commerce industry is so far ahead in terms of technology and what customers expect from you. They expect fast delivery and all of those things. So you can test it out with Amazon, right? Just to see if there's demand and how much your products are selling. The other important thing is that you have to have a platform that optimizes the data. Each of these channels that I've mentioned receive data in a different way. So if your data sits in the e-commerce platform and you're feeding it to these channels in the same way, it's not going to be optimized, and you're going to spend a lot of money on PPC, and your return on investment is not going to be as high. Now, we come to conversion, right? You build an engaging experience, you've attracted customers. How are you going to convert those customers through every stage of the user journey? There are a lot of factors why customers bounce, especially from your checkout. Some of them are you have a complicated checkout process, you lack payment options, lack payment term options, lack a secure checkout, or you don't have the right shipping and delivery. On BigCommerce, our merchants average 70% higher conversion, and there are a couple of reasons why we do so. One, we have a single-page optimized checkout. The more steps you have through the checkout journey, the more likely your customers are to bounce from the checkout, right? If you have a 5-step checkout, you went through something and you're like halfway through, you're like, why do you need to know where my cat lives? Like, I don't want to give you that information. I want to buy faster with a one-page checkout. The second one is checkout speed, right? Your checkout should be fast. But the third one is the most important, especially if you're selling internationally, right? BigCommerce has 65 integrated PSPs and 250 payment methods. You should make sure that you have the right payment providers for the right region. If you don't have the top 3 payment providers in region, data shows that you can have a 30% higher chance of your customers bouncing from the checkout. And then also you should have conversion optimization tools. Put an Amazon, eBay, buy with Prime or Stripe, especially if you're selling in those regions outside of the Balkans. Now, we've done all of these things, right? You've built an engaging experience, you've attracted customers, and you're converting through the region where you started. Let's just say you started in Bulgaria. How are you going to expand and do the same thing all over again in a different region? You've seen from the previous presentations and speakers that you need not only to translate the language, but you need to have the right shipping providers, you have to have a local language, you have to have the right content, or maybe you're not going to have the same products when you sell in the UK as opposed to Bulgaria, for example. Now, do you start all over again, build a completely new site with a completely new backend, build all those integrations, spend all that money on development? If you do it for a country or two, that's completely fine, right? You can manage it with your team. But what about if you're trying to sell in the US and you're trying to sell in all the countries in Europe with different languages and you want to scale to Asia as well? It becomes hectic and it becomes very costly and you end up not doing it. What we do on BigCommerce is we simplify the way you do this, right? By using multi-storefront. And what multi-storefront means is that you have one backend, so from one single backend, you can create and manage multiple storefronts. And those storefronts can have localized experiences, currencies, and data. And it's not just about selling in different languages. Maybe you have 2 brands or you want to have a different name or different content, feed different products to those storefronts. You can do that while not having to start from the beginning all over again. You can just use the one backend as the master of data and just feed the products to which channel you want to. It could even be B2B and B2C, but you want a separate experience. You can replicate them in an easier way without having to start from scratch. So even if you want to test out a region, right? You just start a storefront, test it out. If it doesn't work, you haven't spent a lot of money and you've done it in an easier and fast way. So just to go into more details about like what you can do with a single storefront when you have just one backend. So each storefront, you can have optimized SEO settings, which helps you with marketing. You can advertise in different channels. You can have completely different designs, localized language, and product content and pricing. And also in terms of conversion, for each storefront, you can have a different payment method and different shipping and tax zones. So you treat them as completely different stores, but you just manage them from the one backend, which makes it a lot easier and a lot faster to do so. Now, how do we do this at a low cost, right? You need to think about how are you going to operate in other countries with a low cost. And when you think about picking a platform, and it's not just about picking BigCommerce, it could be other platforms like Shopify, Magento, WordPress, Commerce Tools, etc. You have to think about the broader picture because the initial price that you see is not always the price that you get when you run it. So you have to look at the total cost of ownership. And what I mean by that is this slide, right? The purchasing price or the license cost is just the tip of the iceberg, right? It's just like 15% of the total cost. When you look at everything, you have to look at the third-party apps, the security cost, the bug fixes that you have to go through, upgrades, hosting, compliance, implementation costs, and then constant development costs that you have to go through. So when you analyze, you don't just look at the license cost, you look at everything else. Now, on SaaS platforms, security, bug fixes, upgrades, hosting, compliance are taken care of. Implementation costs and development costs are lower because you have pre-built functionality. It has out-of-the-box functionality that you can utilize. So when you compare, you make sure that you compare apples to apples, and you're comparing the total cost of what it costs you to build and maintain it, as opposed to just looking at the license costs. Now, I'm going to show you a case study of Nokia. I'm sure you remember Nokia. We all had Nokia phones, and we used to play the snake game on there. They launched on BigCommerce, and the first store in the UK was live in 3 months. But that's not the important bit, right? They launched 10 international stores in 10 weeks consecutively. So it took them 1 week to launch a new storefront with a completely localized language, completely local payment methods. They might have different products for those regions. So imagine now how long it would take you to start a completely new store and build all the integrations that you need to if you wanted to sell in different regions. That was it from us, guys. If you want to contact us, we have the QR codes there. And I know the closing remarks are now, and then we have some prices. After that, we can have a glass of rakia. Sorry for being so Balkanic. Cheers.
Thank you.